All right, welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into a story that absolutely proves why raw human ambition will always transcend your financial status. Seriously, we often think of success as this ladder you need a ton of money to climb, right? Well, the reality we're unpacking today totally shatters that idea. We're looking at the life of Kavya Chaudhary. She's a young woman who walked right into the most elite rooms in the country wearing clothes that were literally falling apart. But she carried a mindset that left seasoned bureaucrats completely speechless. Let's get into it. So just ask yourself, what does it truly take to succeed when the odds are just completely stacked against you? Like when you have absolutely nothing to lose, can you pass the country's toughest exam? In India, the UPSC's civil services exam is famously known as one of the most grueling tests on the planet. Millions apply, and honestly, only a tiny fraction actually make it. Usually, this takes years of expensive coaching, endless resources, and total financial stability. But what happens when you strip all of that away? What happens when someone is fighting not just for a career, but for her family's basic survival? Our journey starts in a small, struggling village in Bihar with a 23-year-old girl named Kavya. Her reality was unimaginably tough. Her father, who had worked as a humble peon in the local government school, passed away years ago from an illness. So this left the entire burden of survival on her mother, who washed dishes in other people's homes just to keep the lights on. Imagine Kavya sitting in a mud house with a tin roof, holding her admit card. She's about to face the biggest day of her life, while in the very next room, her mother is coughing up blood. Just getting to the interview was an absolute battle. People in her own village actually mocked her for carrying a file, telling her to look at her worn-out clothes before dreaming of becoming a collector. And get this, on the way there, her sandal broke. She had to fix it on the side of the road with a safety pin. When she finally made it to the prestigious UPSC center, she was surrounded by this sea of expensive cars, tailored suits, and candidates casually dropping the names of their elite colleges. She stepped into a world that immediately judged her, with people whispering that she must have shown up to the wrong place looking for a menial job. But despite all those whispers and the laughter outside, Kavya walked into that interview room with her late father's photo tucked safely in her pocket and just this unbreakable resolve. The panel of 5 elite officials looked up, and, their eyes immediately darted to her faded, patched-up clothes. When they asked where she studied, she didn't have some fancy elite university to name, just a village government school and a local district college with zero expensive coaching. The panel was testing her, really trying to see if someone from her background could handle the immense pressure of running an entire district. They really tried to disarm her. They asked her point blank, if she, coming from such extreme poverty, suddenly gained immense power, would it change her? She looked right at them and delivered this profound truth. She said, poverty doesn't change a person's thinking, only their circumstances. She explained that the root of poverty isn't a lack of intellect, it's a lack of opportunity. Man, the dynamic in the room shifted instantly after that. The officials realized they weren't talking to a victim anymore. They were talking to a true visionary. Then they threw one final curveball just to test her psychological resilience. They asked, what if you don't get selected today? Kavya didn't even flinch. She left those seasoned officials in stunned silence when she simply told them she would try again. Because unlike all the other candidates sitting out in that waiting room, she did not have the luxury to give up. This wasn't just some extracurricular achievement for her, it was literal survival. But the moment she walked out that door, the prestige of the interview room vanished, and harsh reality set right back in. She walked to the bus stand as evening fell, shivering in the cold, and counted her money. She had exactly 20 rupees. Starving and completely terrified for her mother's worsening cough back home, she bought 2 samosas and just cried on a bench. She knew her mother had stayed hungry that entire morning just to scrape together those few rupees for her. When she got back to the village, things took a really dark turn. Her mother's health was rapidly failing. She was actually coughing up blood now. Kavya rushed her to the crowded, underfunded district hospital, only for the doctor to tell her they needed to buy expensive medicines from an outside pharmacy. So to afford those meds and keep her mom alive, Kavya made the heartbreaking decision to sell the only memory she had left of her father, his old watch. She literally sacrificed her past to secure her mom's present, right before a faithful letter from the UPSC finally arrived. And then came the day everything changed. The postman arrived shouting for name. With shaking hands, Kavya opened that official envelope right in front of the whole village. When she read the words confirming her selection as an IAS officer, the same village that once mocked her just erupted in joy. The women who used to taunt her, suddenly dead silent. Her mother collapsed to the floor, shedding tears of pure pride. Her daughter was officially going to be a collector. But as incredible as that was, her monumental success instantly birthed a terrifying new struggle. Right at the bottom of that joyous selection letter was a mandatory instruction. She had to report to the training academy in Delhi the very next month. How does a girl who just sold her father's watch for basic medicine afford to travel to the national capital? How was she supposed to survive in one of the most expensive cities while her mother's health is still failing back home? Her ambition got her through the door, for sure, but her financial reality was threatening to slam it right shut. Well, this is exactly where the power of community steps in. Thanks to the village teacher, affectionately known as Master G, and a few locals pooling their meager resources together, they managed to scrape up enough to buy her a train ticket. Her mother insisted she go, promising she'd be fine. So Kavya arrives in Delhi at this elite training academy, but the judgment didn't stop there. Standing on the academy grounds with just 2 sets of simple clothes, she was completely surrounded by peers in branded suits, speaking fluent English and bragging about their degrees from Delhi University and international colleges. During introductions, she quietly mentioned she was from a government school in Bihar. Well, some of her wealthy peers, who actually recognized her from viral news stories, started whispering. They laughed, pointing her out as the girl with the torn clothes. But Kavya didn't look down, she looked them dead in the eye and completely silenced the hall. She said, "Yes, I am that girl. My clothes were definitely torn, but my dreams were not." I mean, wow. Even the training director smiled at that. She commanded the room immediately. From there, she channeled all of her pain, the mockery, and the constant worry for her mother into a grueling daily schedule. We're talking up at 4 a.m. for intense physical training, complex administrative classes, and exhausting fieldwork. At first, she definitely struggled with the modern environment and the fluent English presentations. But during a critical presentation on rural poverty, she didn't just rattle off facts. She spoke from her lived reality. She explained that villages don't lack talent, they just lack modern facilities and a fair chance. Her passion was so intense, it earned her a standing ovation from the exact same peers who had mocked her just days earlier. But just as she was truly finding her footing and proving beyond a doubt that she belonged at the top, her world came crashing down. She got a terrifying phone call from Master G back in the village. He told her she needed to come home immediately. Her mother's condition had rapidly worsened, and she was admitted to the dilapidated district hospital, the exact same underfunded system Kavya had sworn to change. It's a truly heartbreaking moment. Kavya sprinted into the ICU and grabbed her mother's hand. Her mom opened her eyes, saw her daughter standing there as a successful officer, and just smiled. She whispered that her father's dream was finally fulfilled, and then said, "I have no worries now, daughter. My time has come." And then the medical machines flatlined. The woman who had literally starved herself so her daughter could travel to that interview didn't even live to see her first day on the job. Kavya was totally shattered, but she was fundamentally transformed by this grief. After passing out of the academy with a prestigious medal, Kavya returned to her own district. But this time, she was in an official government vehicle as the assistant collector. The same people who once mocked her now stood there with folded hands. But Kavya wasn't interested in their apologies. She immediately went to the broken government school where her father used to sweep the floors and ordered it completely rebuilt and modernized within 30 days. She used her newfound systemic power to aggressively overhaul the very hospitals that had failed her mother, and she launched special scholarships so absolutely no other child would ever have to choose between their education and their family's survival. One night, standing outside her old tin-roofed house, she looked up at the stars. She realized her mother's sacrifices were the ultimate catalyst for everything she had achieved. And it solidified this really powerful truth for her. A poor person's clothes might be torn, but their dreams can never be torn. It just goes to show that financial status is just a current condition. It is never a limit on human potential unless you allow it to be. So before we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought based on Kavya's extraordinary journey. When you look at her path, fixing a broken shoe with a safety pin, facing elite panels with absolutely zero resources, and turning profound personal tragedy into massive systemic change, what excuses are holding you back from your own ambitions today? Let Kavya's story be the ultimate reminder that ambition and resilience will always transcend your starting point. Keep pushing forward.